Good afternoon, everybody. Hello and welcome to the show. I am a logical lefty, Jeff Waldorf, here with you, and it is Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. It is tax day for a lot of people. Well, for everyone, federally at least, and in a lot of states. I'm not entirely sure if every state as April 15th tax day, but nonetheless, tax day, which sucks. I'm not a fan of tax day, especially with our criminal government. So there it is. But anyway, welcome to the show. Got a great show for you all today. We have, of course, more people being disappeared by the criminal administration. So that's great. As in, that's freaking horrible and scary. And so, yeah, disaster. We've got Doge. Um, Found out what Doge is doing with the data that it stole, and it's not good. It's real bad. So we have that. We've got Trump taking on colleges, going after them. Harvard specifically. We then have a disastrous poll for Trump on the economy, and then 4chan got hacked. 4chan. So that is some crazy stuff that's going on that I know very little about because I'm not exactly somebody who is well versed in both 4chan or hacking, but I'm going to try to muddle through it best I can. But anyway, that's that's the stories that I have today. So why don't we jump into it? Yes, 4chan was indeed hacked. Fascinating. Okay, but we'll start out with some immigration stuff. All right, hold on. A young man was arrested and sent to El Salvador's notorious super prison, even though that nobody was actually looking for him, and he was literally the wrong guy. 19-year-old Manuel Gutierrez was arrested by ICE for just hanging out, literally doing nothing at all. His father, Wilmer Gutierrez, told Documented, quote, the officers grabbed him and two other boys right at the entrance to our building. One said, no, he's not the one. Like they were looking for someone else, but the other said, take him anyway. Just just take him anyway. What does he fit the profile? I mean, if you're still not understanding what is going on here, what this is, then I'm not sure I can help you. Okay? Look, this is racial profiling which is leading people to being disappeared into foreign gulags. That's what's going on. This is what happened to Kilmer Abrego Garcia as well. And like Garcia, Gutierrez, who fled instability in his home country of Venezuela and was pursuing an asylum case in the United States, was detained by ICE after they were targeting or conducting a targeted operation to go after people who are supposed to be undocumented, even though he was here under temporary protected status. So legally allowed to be here, still disappeared, taken right off the street, and sent to a foreign prison. This is horrifying. Okay? Absolutely horrifying. Now, his family and attorneys say that Gutierrez has no criminal record, no gang affiliations, not even a tattoo. Because remember, ICE has been using tattoos to try to claim that the people that they're arresting are, they're members of a violent criminal gang. Look at the tattoo, scary tattoo. This guy didn't have any tattoos, no record or anything, but they disappeared him anyway. His father actually ended up spending days searching for any information related to his son, visiting police stations, courthouses, only to be told, who? There's no record of your son. Sorry, we don't have any records. He's just gone. Eventually, he did manage to find out that his son was being held in Pennsylvania, and was expected to be transferred to Texas before being returned to Venezuela, which did not happen. That transfer never occurred because he got sent to El Salvador. That's it. And his father only found out that he was sent to El Salvador through a news report. So, like, imagine going through all that information, trying to find out desperately what's happening to your son. And the only way that you can find out is a news report. And that's it. That's horrifying. Now, his father said, look, I could understand that if he was sent back to Venezuela. I would get it at least. But why is he going to a foreign country that he had never been to before? That he's not from? Never visited El Salvador? There's no reason. There's no reason. There's so much that is messed up about all of this. The profiling, the racial profiling, of course.
The Republican Party's racist.
Of course. The fact that he's not a criminal, has no criminal record. And by the way, even if you have done a crime, depending on what it is, that doesn't mean that you should be disappeared to a foreign gulag without any due process. And that's the big problem here. No due process. No due process whatsoever. And by the way, due process is how you figure out whether or not this person should be allowed to be here anyway, is legal to be here. So you kind of need due process. But based on this, I think it's pretty clear, should be clear to everybody, that this is a lawless administration that is disappearing people at will. When are people going to wake up? When are people going to wake up? What's to prevent Donald Trump from deporting, it's not even the right word, by the way. It would be exile, essentially, citizens of the United States, American citizens. Well, you would say, well, it's the law, obviously, the Constitution. You can't just go and do that. I mean, come on, that'd be crazy, right? Well, turns out that no, he is planning to figure out a way to try to send American citizens to a foreign prison.
Homegrowns are next. The homegrowns built. You got to build about 5 more places.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. It's not big enough.
I mean, listen to the laugh. They're laughing about sending homegrowns, okay, American citizens, to an infamous torture prison, to what is essentially a concentration camp. That's what's going on. That's chilling. And there's not really a whole lot else that you can say about that. He is going to send his political enemies to an El Salvadoran death camp. That's what's going on. This is not deportation, it's exile. On non-existent charges of terrorism, by the way. Wake up, people. It is fascism 101. And it won't just happen to people like Garcia and Gutierrez. Eventually, anyone who stands up against this administration could end up being in one of these prisons. And look, this is already happening to other people. Mohsen Madawi, a Palestinian student here on a visa, had his visa canceled. And then he was arrested on allegations of, get this, anti-Semitism on college campus. BS charge, complete and total BS charge. And even more nonsensical, considering that back in December of 2023, Madawi was interviewed by Bill Whitaker for a segment on 60 Minutes, where he recalled confronting an anti-Semitic agitator.
And a person comes down the stairs yelling, "Death to Jews." I was shocked. And I walked directly to the person and I told him, "You don't represent us because this is not something that we agree with." and I took the megaphone and they gave a speech and they said, we here are conscious, educated students and we know how to separate right from wrong. What this guy has said is clearly anti-Semitic against Jews.
Anti-Semitic.
To be anti-Semitic is unjust. And the fight for the freedom of Palestine and the fight against anti-Semitism go hand in hand, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Does that guy sound like he's anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish? No. Look, all of this is related. For one, this is a way to send innocent people in order to, pad his lower deportation numbers. Remember, he's like, we're going to have the biggest deportation number ever. And it turns out that, no, we're actually not. Okay. It's still somehow deporting less people than Joe Biden did, which, yeah, if you can believe it. But most of the people that are getting deported do not have criminal records. We're working, okay, or we're people that try to protest against a genocide. I mean, you're supposed to have freedom of speech here in this country, but not anymore. Not if you're an immigrant, okay? Not if you're a Latino, not if you're a black person, not if you're any sort of minority, okay? And so that, but also a way to spread fear in the immigrant community and in his political opposition. Don't you dare oppose us, because we will send you to a death camp in El Salvador. You will probably either get tortured or killed. And that's it. Wow. This is what fascist governments do. Anyone who told us that we're overreacting about Trump and his fascist tendencies, I got to ask you, you think we're overreacting now? So I'm pretty sure we're not. Do you finally get it? Do you understand the things that are happening right now in front of your eyes? Because if not, you better open them real quick. Okay. I know some folks that are left-leaning in my life that are talking about how great deportations are, and I'm sick. Yeah, this is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. As if, like, the deportations are going to make your life better. They're not. Okay. It appears that we may finally know what's happening with the data illegally gathered from the federal government by the non-Department of Government Efficiency. Okay, because it's not actually a real department, and it's not actually efficient either. But turns out that they're using this information gathered to target alleged undocumented immigrants with the goal of removing them, deporting them. So now the information gathered includes information like where they work, where they study, where they live, according to a report in the Washington Post. At the Department of Housing and Urban Development, for example, officials are working on a rule that would ban mixed status households, in which some family members have legal status and others don't, from public housing, according to multiple staffers who spoke on the condition of anonymity out of fear of retribution. Affiliates from the U.S. DOJ service are also looking to kick out existing mixed status households, vowing to ensure that undocumented immigrants do not benefit from public programs, even if they only live with citizens or other eligible family members. So you just can't even live there. Oh, great. Yeah. The push extends across different agencies. Last week, the SSA entered the names and social security numbers of more than 6,000 mostly Latino immigrants into a database it uses to track dead people. Are they dead? No. They're not. But it effectively gets rid of their ability to receive benefits or work legally in the United States. So we're just going to label you as dead. Wow. Federal tax and immigration enforcement officials also recently reached a deal to share confidential tax data for people suspected of being in the United States illegally. This is it's supposed to be the party's small government, but I don't know, it kind of seems like gigantic government. The biggest government imaginable. And they're working with people who should have never had access to this private data to begin with, rooting around in our systems, right? And using it against people for immigration purposes, or I should say racist purposes, okay? Jesus. This is a complete violation of privacy, of rules and laws, but again, it doesn't matter. They don't care about rules. They don't care about laws. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about due process. They don't care about any of that. Now, it goes beyond undocumented immigrants, by the way. Tanya Broder, Senior Counsel for Health and Economic Justice Policy at the National Immigration Law Center, said, quote, "It's not only about one subgroup of people. It's really about all of us. Everyone cares about their privacy. Nobody wants their healthcare information or tax information broadcast and used to go after us." Yes, you know what that would be? The weaponization of government. Yeah. These conservatives who cried about weaponized government, oh, the weaponized government, they seem pretty okay now with the actual weaponization of government, because that's what this is. The White House did not reply to a request for comment, but in response to questions, a DHS official had said, "The government is finally doing what it should have all along, sharing information across the federal government to solve problems." What problem are you solving? What problem are you actually solving? No, you're searching for a problem. You have a solution, and dare I say, it might be pretty close to a final one. And that's really, really scary. But now, the department's Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs also said, "Information sharing across agencies is essential to identify who is in our country, including violent criminals, determine what public safety and terror threats may exist, scrub these individuals from voter rolls, as well as identify what public benefits these aliens are using at taxpayer expense." Okay, here's the reality. Vast majority of these people that have been swept up in these ICE raids don't have criminal records. Not only that, but undocumented immigrants are already legally barred from voting. Okay, so they don't vote. They're also ineligible for public benefits. That said, apparently, this push is even more extensive than what the administration is admitting. Staffers across multiple federal agencies said that, mostly speaking, on the condition of anonymity, because they would get punished basically for speaking out of what they're actually doing. But they say that the DHS has already asked the SSA for help with immigration enforcement and tracking down fraudulent use of Social Security numbers, according to a government official briefed on the matter. At the IRS, officials agreed this month to share data with DHS, which indicated they might seek to use tax information to find as many as 7 million people suspected of being in the country illegally. Post has reported the acting IRS commissioner resigned after that deal was signed. The irony here is, if these people are working and paying taxes, they're getting absolutely nothing back in return. Remember, undocumented immigrants pay billions of dollars in taxes, and they get nothing back because they're not eligible for any of these things. So, and not only that, but now you're working, paying into the system, and now that same tax information is being used against these immigrants. For example, at HUD, Mike Mirsky, a DOJ staffer, is planning to target cities such as New York and Chicago in order to go after mixed status households, according to one employee. The power to mine that information effectively lets Mirsky, quote, decide who is a citizen and who is not a citizen. Adding that those decisions would be based on flawed analysis of data sets that he doesn't actually know how to use. Great. As a result, multiple people close to the departments and public housing authorities are on alert, hosting webinars and internal meetings about what to do if immigration officials arrive en masse. They often conclude that they have little recourse but to call the police. And of course, the police aren't going to do anything. And at Social Security, DOJ representatives have spent the last month seeking access to data and asking questions that would allow them to ascertain people's citizenship status. The team gained increasing access to claimants' full names, social security numbers, dates of birth, mailing addresses, contact information, bank details, and more. And in March, DOJ advisors accessed a data set with highly sensitive personal information, including applicants' driver's license, citizenship status, and various other markers collected by DHS, which it shares with Social Security under existing intra-agency agreements. They later asked career employees how to understand, interpret, and use that data, that Social Security data, wage data. Specifically, the staffer said the data would permit DOJ officials to identify individuals who are working in the country without a Social Security number, a strong indication of illegal status. Now, at the Education Department, officials are also seeking information that could be used to help immigration authorities find people to deport. Education Department political appointees told the attorneys handling the cases to ask the schools for the names and nationalities of protesters against Israel's war on Gaza, according to documents, and 3 attorneys with the Office for Civil Rights who have direct knowledge of the situation and who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the cases publicly. Look, this is sickening. This is government being weaponized against immigrants using data illegally stolen from government systems. This is why DOJ was rooting around in those systems to begin with. They weren't there to audit waste, fraud, and abuse. No, they were there to collect private information to hand over to ICE so that their brown shirts can go and arrest immigrants. This is Nazi shit. And if you think none of that would happen here, better open your eyes, because it is happening. And of course, we go into the next story. Retaliation. Because of course. President Donald Trump has retaliated against Harvard University for their refusal to bend to his demands, which included reforming its governance, ending DEI, changing its admissions and hiring, and curbing the power of certain students, don't know what they mean by that, faculty and administrators, due to their ideological views. Look, this sounds a lot like censorship to me. And of course, Harvard, they said no, we're not interested in that. As a result of them saying no, the government ended up freezing $2.2 billion in multi-year grants to the Ivy League school. The school's president, Alan Garber, said the school will not surrender to its independence or its constitutional rights. Now, they're using claims, the government, they're using these claims of anti-Semitism on campus to try to justify pulling the funding and basically telling this college what they're going to do. Okay, to try to change, to get rid of DEI and all that stuff. Oh, if you get money from us, then you have to do all this stuff. Here's the thing, though. As far as the anti-Semitism claims, they're absolutely ridiculous. Okay, all you have to do to be considered an anti-Semite by this administration is just criticize the state of Israel. That's it. I mean, claiming that it's anti-Semitic to criticize the Israeli government, that is the real anti-Semitism. Obviously, not every Jewish person is Israeli. Not every Jewish person agrees with the Netanyahu government. In fact, a lot of the protesters on these campuses were actually Jewish people. That's it. Who do not agree with the systematic collective punishment of all Palestinians in Gaza for the actions of Hamas. But Trump doesn't care. He doesn't care about free speech on college campuses. I remember when the right wing claimed to care about free speech. When conservative speakers were getting protested for coming to speak at these campuses. I remember the flip out. They cry, oh my God, my free speech. Oh no. But then now, if you have an opinion that is not pro-genocide, well, suddenly you have no free speech. You're not allowed to speak. And by the way, if you're on a visa, if you're on a student visa, we're just going to take that away. And then we're going to deport you to an El Salvadoran prison. Jesus. They're taking the college's money because, oh, you don't allow align with Donald Trump's goals. Can't have that.
Can't let that happen.
So now Garber posted on the school's website that the administration's demands were not aimed at fighting hatred towards Jewish people. He said, although some of the demands outlined by the government are aimed at combating anti-Semitism, the majority represent direct governmental regulation of our intellectual conditions at Harvard, meaning that they are literally trying to change what is acceptable thought. These are the people that claim that colleges are indoctrination centers, and are now, of course, trying to use funding, the threat of pulling funding, to turn them into actual right-wing indoctrination centers. Of course. Or not only that, but to try to prevent any kind of independent thought by young people. Isn't it so interesting how fast they turn to censorship? And it's not just Harvard or any of the other Ivy League schools that are the target of this. In fact, here is Representative Elise Stefanik calling for all colleges to be defunded.
Higher education has fundamentally lost its way, and it's increasingly out of touch, and the tuition rates go higher and higher. So we need to defund across the board, and President Trump is rightly holding these schools accountable.
Accountable for what? What did these schools do that was wrong, other than not bend to the whims of a madman? Okay. And by the way, I love how she points out, it's just not working for people. Tuition keeps going higher and higher, which is why we will do the one thing that will make tuition go even higher. Because that is why tuition is so high in the first place. The government stopped investing in colleges. And I know it's mainly, state governments, but also the federal government. I remember a time, well, I didn't personally live through this time, but I remember reading about a time, I know, crazy, where you actually had colleges that were affordable. I know. Insane. We don't have that anymore, but that's because of Ronald frickin' Reagan. But here's the thing, though. Pulling the funding from these colleges may sound like a dumb plan. And it is. But, it is part of their plan. They do not want people to be educated, especially working class people. They believe that higher education should only be reserved for the super rich, because they don't want regular working people challenging their authority by getting all educated. I know. So I guess too many young people challenging right-wing rule. We don't like it. Too many smart people out there. We need to dumb them all down. So let's defund the schools to make sure that they, for one, implement changes that will make these schools reinforce a conservative worldview. We're also going to, get rid of the Department of Education, which handles student loans. We're going to roll that into the Small Business Administration. We're going to do all these things to make higher education inaccessible. And that's it. It's not enough for them that there are conservative colleges. There absolutely are. There are religious schools that people can choose to go to. The thing is, they want to make it so there isn't a choice. There is no choice. You will only get the education that we approve of. And that's it. Because educated people have and always will be the biggest threat to far-right ideology. Okay. Let me read some super chats before I get too far. First of all, VMan 29397 says, when tyranny is law, revolution is order. That is the Puerto Rican lawyer and nationalist leader, Pedro Albizu Campos. And then Vertical Flat says, college should be there, but vocational education should be worked on and promoted. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And I have no problem with vocational training. Not everybody is, basically should go to college, okay? And I don't think that going to college should be the only thing that allows you to get a career in which you can take care of yourself and your family to guarantee you a living wage. Yeah, vocational training is, look, vocational work is very important work. Skilled trades are great. I worked in the skilled trade, so I understand how difficult it can be. And so, yes, I do absolutely agree with you on that one, Vertical Flats. There should be many options for people who want to work with their hands, skilled trades. For those who work better with their mind, higher education. And I think it all should be free. Okay. So let's move on to Donald Trump's disastrous polling. Okay. It appears that a growing number of Americans are rightly putting the blame on President Donald Trump for the state of the economy. According to two recent polls, majorities are now blaming the president for high prices and inflation. In a new CBS News YouGov poll, 54% of respondents said that they believe that Donald Trump's policies are more to blame for the current state of the economy, which they say is not good. Only 21% said that they believe Biden's policies are to blame. 20% said both of their policies are equally to blame. You gotta love the both sidesers there. Okay. While 5% said neither are to blame for the state of the economy. Then who is the freaking Easter Bunny? Like, I don't know. Super weird. But anyway, this compares to a March CBS News poll when 38% of respondents said they blamed Joe Biden for inflation, while only 34% blamed Trump. Look, a lot of the inflation came from COVID. You know that whole once in a lifetime pandemic kind of happened. And then look, you also had, along with the pandemic, which disrupted supply chains, you had a lot of greedflation. A lot of companies saying, you know what, we're going to take advantage of this and we're just going to raise prices. Even though our costs have gone back down, doesn't matter. We're going to raise our prices anyway and then just blame inflation. Ha ha, suckers. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's the greedflation here. And that accounts for about half of all the price increases. Okay. It's a disaster. And look, Biden didn't do anything about it. And so, yeah, if you want to blame him for not trying to do something about it, you can also blame Congress because the president is not a dictator, is not a king, and doesn't have sole unilateral power to fix something like that. So you can also blame Congress, you know, and of course you can blame Republicans. So there's all that. Now, that said, let me get to the second poll here before I go off on a tangent. The second poll is from YouGov and The Economist, which also showed that more Americans are blaming President Trump for the economy. Their latest poll, conducted among 1,741 adults from April 5th to April 8th, showed that 50% of Americans blame Trump for the economy, compared to 32% who blamed Biden, 6% said neither, while 13% were unsure. Interesting. So, would you look at that? What's funny is that people have noticed that Trump went from, I'm going to lower your grocery prices on day one. Yeah, remember, that's what he said. To, oh, just stick with me. Okay, it's going to take a while. You know, the prices, yes, they're going to continue to rise. You're going to have some pain. But just stick with me. Ah, okay. Sure. Now, of course, when he was saying, I'm going to lower your grocery prices, I mean, that was a red flag. People should have been like, wait, there's no way he's going to lower grocery prices on day one. How? Do you have a plan? I've got concepts of a plan. Oh, do you? Oh, no, you don't. There was never any concepts of a plan. And so, look, you could say that Trump mismanaged the economy with nonsensical tariffs. All right. I mean, that could be one of those things where, yes, he mismanaged it and put these dumb tariffs on and crashed the stock market. And now that's why everything is kind of terrible. But I do think, though, that he did this on purpose. Okay, I think he crashed the market on purpose. Why do I think that? Why would he do that? So his buddies can make money. They buy the dip. That's it. I mean, look, we are dealing with a con artist president. Do you think that he wouldn't do something like that? Would that be out of character? I don't think so. Not in my opinion. And like a lot of his friends, I think he wants to concentrate wealth at the top. Mostly with him. But if his friends, his wealthy buddies, benefit from this too, that's fine. That's what he's doing. And look, his tax plan is next. Okay. And his tax plan is an even bigger transfer of wealth from everyone else to the top 1%. That's it. CNN data analyst Harry Enton noted, I don't think Americans are buying what he's selling, Trump, anymore. At least on this particular at this particular point. They found that 63% of respondents disapproved of his trade and tariff strategy, including 72% of independents and 12% of Republicans. He's underwater for the first time, Enton said, pointing to a drop in Trump's approval rating, which went from +6 in February to -6 this week. Now, that said, he's still going great with Republican voters. Oh, they love him. No matter what. They love him. Even though, yes, a lot of them are being harmed. But with independents, things are not so good. Turns out he is 22 points underwater with independents, which broke his old record of -16 from his first administration. So he's even more unpopular now with independents than he ever has been. And according to aggregate polling, Trump has fallen from a positive net approval rating to a -29% on the economy. Disaster. Absolute disaster. And it's not just Donald Trump that's underwater. Elon Musk is getting a lot of the blame because of Doge. In fact, pollster Adam Carlson told Newsweek, following the disaster in Wisconsin for Republicans, Musk could serve as a powerful bonus boogeyman for Democrats. Musk is so electorally toxic that just the idea of him might be enough. Now, let me disagree with that a little bit. Yes, Musk is super unpopular because of what he's doing. So, what should the Democrats do? The opposite. They should actually promote a vision, a good economic vision for this country. Don't just say Musk bad, Trump bad, because that doesn't work. What you should say is, well, we want to raise the minimum wage. We want to make it a living wage. We want to do this. We want to bring working class jobs back that pay a living wage. We want to help with labor rights. We want to do all these things. We want to lower prices. We want to help with your insurance. Maybe actually have a Medicare for all or a public option when it comes to healthcare, things like that. Articulate a vision. That would help Democrats a lot, especially at this very low time for Donald Trump. I mean, what are they waiting for? Are they waiting for Donald Trump to get lower? I don't know. But anyway, now for Trump, according to the Wall Street Journal, apparently his tariffs bombed so bad with the business community that they're claiming that he is going to get impeached. That's right. Columnist Holman W. Jenkins Jr. wrote on Monday that, quote, a future Trump impeachment seemed all but guaranteed by last Wednesday morning. It seems only slightly less likely now. It may even be desirable to restore America's standing with creditors and trade partners. This is Wall Street Journal talking about, like, hey, impeach this guy. What? I mean, yes, who could have known that putting Trump in the White House would lead to economic disaster for average people? Oh, right, everybody that's paying attention, of course. But it is funny enough that the business leaders that supported him the most are now apparently some of the ones pushing to have him impeached. They're turning against him. They really seem to believe that this would be perhaps like the first administration, where he had all these people that were telling him, hey, no, sir, you can't actually do that. These tariffs on everybody, you can't do that. Not a good idea. Well, he doesn't have that anymore. Okay, guy's running a hog wild. And it turns out that perhaps letting him do that might have been a bad idea after all. Again, who would have known? Okay. I'm sure some of you here were waiting for that, for me to get to the 4chan. It appears that hackers have taken down the infamous message board known as 4chan. In a post on Monday evening to the rival image board soyjack.party, an anonymous user claimed that a hacker was able to leak website code to the personal information of staff after being in 4chan's system for over a year. That is some deep cover, all right? Long time deep cover. The user went on to claim that a 4chan admin, in an attempt to control the damage, took servers offline. As of Tuesday morning, the image board was only available intermittently. Screenshots shared in the Sojak thread show what appears to be an admin-level access to 4chan. In one example, an image shows an internal discussion in J, a private board for moderators and volunteer guideline enforcers known as janitors. The image also shows the use of an internal tool that allows moderators to view the location, host, and IP address of the site's otherwise anonymous users, as well as ban them. The Daily Dot was able to obtain a sample of the purported data, which included a list containing the username and email address of one of the administrators, as well as approximately 218 moderators, managers, and janitors. The data also includes hundreds of pages of archived posts, as well as what appears to be the image board's backend code. Never show them your backend. It also includes the name of users who bought yearly subscriptions to the website using a program called Pass. So, look, here's the thing. Maybe I'm wrong, because there's some, I guess, good things that came out of 4chan, like Anonymous, for example. But I tend to think that everybody views 4chan as the armpit of the internet. Though not as bad as 8chan, apparently. The website has stirred controversy for its involvement in things like Gamergate, the fappening, if you remember that. I do. I remember that. Pepperidge Farm remembers. And supported people like President Donald Trump with their Paul forum. So what happened, though? Who hacked it and why? Again, as far as I know, turns out that this may have been part of a 5-year-long inter-image board fight between 4chan and Sojak. So, no, in case you were wondering, it's not anonymous. So, I guess they're not involved. And from what I've read, it's not really a sophisticated hack because there were a ton of vulnerabilities. According to 404 Media's look at the code and people sorting through the hack online, it appears that 4chan was running some very out-of-date code which contained various vulnerabilities. So they did leave their back end way open. Apparently, the site had not been updated since 2016. And so, as a result, various internet users have responded to this hack, calling it essentially a death knell. Look, I don't know if that's the case. I'm not as well versed in this kind of stuff, obviously. But that said, I do have a feeling that a lot of people, if 4chan dies, aren't really going to miss it. And that's about it. That's really all I have on that one. Vertical Flats writes, so they did not get a pass. And there you go. No pass for you. Well, that's all I got for you today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the stream. Please like and share if you haven't already. Consider becoming a member. Go to our Patreon, patreon.com/jeffwaldorf, or sign up to be a channel member on our YouTube page or on Facebook. Be a subscriber. And of course, we're also on Twitch. So you can also be a subscriber on our Twitch channel with all of that. Dead also freezes bank accounts, said Dory, over on Twitch. Swell weaponizing anti-Semitism leads to Jews getting blamed for more stuff. Yeah, isn't that weird how that works out? They just love supporting the genocide of Palestinians. Remember, Donald Trump had called, Chuck Schumer, a Palestinian, which is bizarre. But anyway, that's all I got. And thank you once again. We'll see you back here hopefully tomorrow about the same time, same place, all that fun stuff. So make sure to take care of yourselves, your families, and your communities. Fighting local against the Trump administration it may not seem like much, but trust me, you get your communities together and you can resist fascism at a local level. And that's what's important. Doing all that you can do to fight against the regime. That said, have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.